Hello and welcome again to Mission America, where our aim here is to promote, preserve, and protect the values and traditions of this great country. 100% absolute, no doubt, flag-waving, anthem-singing crazy folk. So, thank you for joining in today. I appreciate it. I do have a little bit of a disclaimer on this one. I made my original taping about 3 days ago, but when I went back and I listened to it, I saw that there were some things that I didn't like the sound quality. I got interrupted a couple times. So, listen, this is amateur radio, so you get what you get, but so some of this may seem, a day or two late, but I still want to talk about it because I think I have some constructive things to say here. I hope I do. And again, your comments and responses are always welcome. You can either put them on the Facebook page of Mission America, or you can email me at coachreichard@gmail.com. That's coachreichard@gmail.com. So, all right, so let's get to it. I got 3 topics I want to cover today. So, topic 1, how to screw up a country in less than 30 days. So, we're coming up on 1 month of the new administration. And I think, depending on whether you drink champagne or beer, you're getting a taste based on how you perceive things and prefer things. I can imagine that people on the left are extremely happy with Joey B, and he would get an A+ so far. I think people on the opposite end, the beer drinkers of this world, probably think otherwise. I don't think they're going to give him a good grade. I mean, just think about it. 50+ executive orders, nearly none of them for the real American people. He's rejoined suspect organizations. He's appointed questionable cabinet members with tons of conflicts of interest, especially with China, aimless, conflicting, and oftentimes misleading information on the vaccine and a variety of other issues. I often tell my students, you have to work to earn an F. And I hope you understand what I mean by that. I say to them, listen, in probably 95+% of the cases, when a student makes an F, it's a conscious decision on their part to not work. So in effect, they're working to not work. They're actually going out of their way to avoid work. So in some strange way that I see it, they're working. And that's how I see this with Joey B. They are, they're going out of their way to earn this F so far. He seems to have this free-range chicken coop of an administration. I just don't get it. There's a lot of it that I don't understand about what they're doing. There's got to be a long-term plan in place. I'm not smart enough yet to figure that one out. When I do, maybe I can share it with you. Maybe if you do, you can share it with me. So I would like to know. I have some ideas, but I'm sure that some of you out there might say, well, that's really, really out there, and it's pretty conspiratorial. And I don't like to engage in conspiracies. I don't. I want to focus on the truth. I want to focus on what is in front of me, and I don't want to use too much conjecture without the proof. So call me an X's and O's guy when it comes to that. But I do have my suspicions. All right, so let's get to topic number 2. Trump and the GOP. We saw 7 Benedict Arnolds this past weekend who decided to side with the defecators and convict Trump. I told you a while back what I thought would happen to them. Some of them just got reelected, so we're stuck with them. Some of them are not running for reelection, so they'll be gone. And some of them will be hopefully primaried by strong Republicans who want to carry a populist message. And then the other day, we see thousands of people showing up in West Palm Beach to show their support for number 45 on President's Day. And I mean, think about this. Do you think Obama would have ever gotten that in 2017 after he left office? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. So, look, here's what I got to see in 2024. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But if Trump comes back in 2024 to make a run, I just want to see a slightly less edgier guy, sort of a more tempered Trump. Don't get me wrong, he can unleash when he needs to unleash, but I just want to see him take a step back on the real personal stuff. I mean, at his age, it's hard. You don't know. I mean, look at Biden at 78. His character's not changing. All these new things that he's come out with, this isn't Joe Biden. It's not even close to being Joe Biden. He didn't flip the switch, 12 months ago. So, but for Trump, if he could just scale back just a tad, because if you look at his presidency, the only thing that really tarnished it for, middle of the road independence, center, left of center. And again, those are the people I'm primarily talking to. Because again, those of us on the right, we get it. We understand Trump. But there's still people in the middle and center left who probably, if he was less edgier, less offensive, if you will, they could have gravitated toward him a little bit more. So in a way, to me, that's the only thing that tarnished his presidency, because the vast majority of his policies were pro-America, pro-people. It was pro-conservative. And that's why this is a populist sort of revolution now for us, because we are the plebes who are standing up against these elitists, and we outnumber them. Please understand that. We outnumber them. So, I just go back to look, if Trump can just somehow just take a step back, smile a little bit more, back off the personal stuff, and just make it more about policy and direction. Because listen, the majority of us agree. His policies were spot on. His patriotism, unquestioned. His vision for America, clear. So, again, I'm not talking about people on the right. I'm talking to you people in the center left. If Trump sort of backed off a little bit and you looked at his policies, I guarantee you, had we put an avatar up there and just listed the policies and accomplishments, you would have said, wow, that's a pretty good presidency right there. That's pretty awesome. Who is that? Donald Trump. No, come on. Donald Trump? Yep, Donald Trump. So, anyhow, because we know Trump's got our back. We know he's got the majority of working class people. He's got their back. But if he wants to make inroads to those college-educated suburbanites, his rhetoric has to be scaled back just a bit. I would also change the phrase fake news. Get rid of it. Fake connotes artificial. And to me, I look at some of the things in the news as not being artificial. They're not fake. Now, are they dishonest? Absolutely. So I would reshape that phrase from fake news to dishonest media, because it would work. It would have more of an impact. And I know Trump was talking about the fake news, about the Russia hoax. I get all that, but there was more dishonesty than there was fakeness, if you will. Like the House managers. Their presentation at the impeachment trial, there was evidence, but it was doctored, it was altered, it was edited, meaning it was dishonest. Not fake, just dishonest. Again, it has more of an impact, so get rid of fake news, just start labeling it dishonest media. Dishonest, 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 because it's still a very strong value. When you the integrity of someone's honesty is still extremely important, because when people start lying, you don't trust them anymore. So I would go with dishonest more than anything else. And look, we know there's no doubt Trump has his pulse on the American people and what millions and millions of Americans want. So, how do we keep that kinship with the GOP? We listen to, Mitch McConnell out of Kentucky. He talked about Trump being he's morally responsible. And, obviously you're going to have to do something about McConnell. Either get rid of him somehow, or, sit down with him and say, look, dude, how many people voted for you in Kentucky? All right. Okay. 75 million people voted for Trump. And I would say that pretty much 75 million people got that dude's back. So if you don't, then you need to step aside, because his policies work. His American First agenda is spot on, and that's how we're moving forward. You're either on the train or you're not. Trump train's moving out of the station. Either get on it or get off. So I just want to, talk to the Mitch McConnells and the Romneys of the world. And, I would look Romney in the face and I would say, look, Mitt, put away the personal animosity. Stop trying to endear yourself to a corrupt, backstabbing party. It's time to free your true conscience. Because if you are a true believer, Mitt, right, a true believer, then your life, your decisions will be assessed and judged. And lastly, Mitt, name one single person who vehemently opposed our founders. Let me repeat the question. Give me one major person who vehemently opposed our founders. There were some out there. The problem is, you don't know who they are. You know why? Because they just died in anonymity. They were on the wrong side of history. So, do you want to have an anonymous legacy, or one that is crudely ridiculed? Because that's what will happen. You will be crudely ridiculed. So again, Trump train's heading out of the station. Time for these wishy-washy Republicans to get on board. This is the Frank Stockton story, The Lady or the Tiger. If you're familiar with that short story, where the prince, not the prince, the suitor, he's got to make a decision between two doors. One leads to absolute awesomeness, beauty, wonder, freedom, so to speak. The other leads to death, because there is a hungry tiger waiting behind it. And that hungry tiger is the Defecator Party, because that's what they want to do. They want to destroy you. Okay? So, all right. So the last topic that I want to talk about today, topic number 3, restoring the Republic. All right, here's the thing about restoring the Republic. I played around with words, and the word restore just kept coming back to me in a strong way. So I went with restore, but there is a blogger out there. It's called Restore the Republic. And I went to his website, and I looked at it, and I read there's some good, interesting articles out there from the guy. So if you're interested, restoretherepublic.org. He's out there. But I don't know if he, what do they call, patented that, right? That statement, Restore the Republic. So I am using Restore the Republic because I think that's something that we have to do. Because it's not about restoring the democracy. I'm tired of this undermining democracy. God dang it, we're a constitutional republic. That's what we are. And so that's what we need to do. All right, we need to restore the republic. So I'm going to get into some major issues here, and I'm going to try to do it quickly, because there are 8 major issues, and this is nothing new to you all. So this is going to sound like, Reichard, can you tell us something new? But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to expand on them a little bit. So here are the major issues that we're going to talk about: education, healthcare, jobs/economy, communication and technology, energy, freedom, security, and the environment. So those are 8 major topics that are oftentimes covered. And I sort of have my own take on some of the things that the Republicans ought to do for 2022. And honestly, I think they should come up with a 7 or 8 or 10 point plan to sort of coalesce around as they run for office in 2022. Similar to what Newt Gingrich did back in 1994 when he ran on the Contract with America. I think the Republicans should run on a 21st century agenda for America. I mean, seriously, use that. I know Trump's got his America First agenda, right? But let's just go ahead and tweak it, the Republicans, and just say 21st century agenda for America. That's what we're focused on. And so just some of the things I want to focus on. And look, I am no seer. I don't look into a crystal ball. I don't profess to be, some sort of a prophetic type of person. But I surmise. That's what I do. I surmise. And so here's what I have surmised about looking, 10, 15, 20, 25 years into the future, right? All the way basically up to 2050. So let me get to this quick. So when it comes to education, number one, make school choice a priority. Absolute 100% make school choice a priority. Many people are not aware of the dangers and the ever-collapsing education systems within the cities. It's really bad. It's gotten really, really bad. And it's creeping out into these suburban areas and especially the rural areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about the rural areas here in a minute. But making school choice a priority. Imagine these people right now, amidst the pandemic, who see a school district, 5 miles over, because they're in a different county, they're going to school. And they look at their county and they're like, wait a minute, why are we not in school? What are we doing? Why are our kids not playing sports? What are we doing? So if they had school choice, I say, hey, you know what? I love my kid. Even if I have to drive 15 miles, I'm taking my kid to that school because that's where my kid needs to go to school. So they need to offer these parents more school choice. Number two, I think we ought to create a freedom highway to have internet access to every American home by 2025. A lot of the groundwork is already there. I will credit Obama. He did begin sort of that infrastructure part with fiber optics, and we just need to finish the job. And the way we do it is through infrastructure financing and also through incentives. And here's where a lot of this ties in together. You've got these rural areas that have so many places have just fallen into disrepair. There are no jobs. Go through small rural towns, and all you see there are Burger King, McDonald's. You see an AutoZone. You see all these major companies, and it's okay, but there's nothing there that really propels those people to want to stay. Why, other than just sheer nostalgia, why do they want to stay? There's no future for them. So how do we do that? We create a rural renaissance. I mentioned this probably about 5 or 6 months ago that said this pandemic is a perfect opportunity to create that rural renaissance. You can provide incentives for manufacturing companies, even tech companies these days, because look how many people are working from home. So why not lure some of these tech companies out of these big cities where they're paying these huge taxes, these huge land leases, put them out in some rural area of South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky. It doesn't matter. Arkansas, it doesn't matter. Put them out in some of these more rural areas and let them be a boom to those rural areas. First of all, they're going to create better jobs because if it's a tech company coming in, they're going to pay higher wages to those people. And they know the cost of living is not that high. And hopefully there'll be a sort of a moratorium, if you will, on, keeping that thing level. I understand free market, but, we don't want the rural area to turn into, say, San Francisco, where you've got the rich people living in some gated community 3 miles outside of town, and the rest of the people are, living in shacks. We don't want that. We got to create some form of mobility for these local people. And so you could do kind of what they do in Canada. In Canada, if if you have a certain entity and people want to come in, 20% of them have to be locals, right? So 20% of them have to be local hires. So if a tech company comes in to an area, then 20% of their staff has to be local people. I'm just putting a number out there. It could be 25%, but at least you're giving it a start. And obviously, if you're bringing in a manufacturing company, yeah, you're probably bringing in middle management, upper management from the other areas, but you can start out a lot of local people. So again, create a Freedom Highway, getting internet access to all these homes by 2025. You can do that out in these rural areas by bringing in these tech companies, and they can help finish the groundwork. They can help finish, because they're going to need it. They're going to need it for their companies. So let them finish it. Make this like a public-private partnership, if you will. Okay? You want to give tax credits or you want to give whatever, I understand all that. But again, imagine the revenue that they're going to bring in. And same thing with the manufacturers, right? It just has a domino effect. And so those are some major points that I'm looking at. And again, it extends out to here. You're promoting a small business entrepreneurial canvas to these small towns again, right? Because you're going to get these creative things going once you get these companies coming in. If somebody creates a small business in a rural town and they just don't have the people to support it, then they don't last. So you need that support. So I firmly believe in that. If you're going to bring the internet out to the rural areas, start providing those incentives. Call the states, say, hey, look, we've been down and out for 30 years. What can we do to try to bring a decent manufacturing or tech company to our area? And start working it out with the governors. Here's another thing we need to do. We need to go back to reconstituting that energy independence and a sane, pragmatic, reasonable approach to, quote unquote, renewable energy, green energy. We saw evidence in Texas where it backfired in a big way. So in a way, I'm not glad because there's 3-4 million people without power in Texas, but in a way, it's reflective of their ambitions being unreasonable, that they're pushing this thing way too fast. We've made significant inroads into reducing our emissions and creating renewable energies. So it's a progress. It's a progressive thing. And this seems like something that they don't want to do. They just want to jam it down our throats because it's what they think is right. And obviously it's wrong. Okay, so getting on to other issues. Sorry about that. Healthcare. There's no doubt healthcare needs to be opened up to more competition. We need to get away from these mega healthcare groups. So if we can somehow break them up, create more smaller health groups, kind of like car insurance. I've been talking about this for 20 years, that if we handled healthcare the way we handle car insurance, our healthcare would be a lot cheaper. I realize that not everybody needs car insurance. I get all that. Not everybody drives cars. I get all that. It's the idea behind the competition, that you're creating these sort of tailored plans for the people. And you're not saying, well, if you're in a group, we'll give you a better deal. No, screw that. Screw that. Does a car company do that? Does State Farm say, hey, if you got together with 10 other people, we'd reduce you? No, you know what they do? They say, listen, if you got family members, if you got 2 cars or a house, you throw that in, we'll make a better deal. Same thing with insurance, right? Same with healthcare insurance. Look at the plans out there, tailor it, and that's the price. Make it competitive. So that's a big one. I kind of touched upon community and communication and technology. Again, the Freedom Access, the Freedom Highway. So let's move on, and I talked about energy. So let's move on to freedom, right? I think the biggest the biggest counter to our freedom right now is this canceling, suspending people, not allowing their First Amendment rights to be heard. I just think about Rush Limbaugh, who just passed away. And one thing, and I didn't agree with Rush a lot. I disagreed with him a lot. But you know what? That dude stood up to the naysayers, the haters, just the bullies, and he stood his ground. And he said, you're not going to infringe upon my right to say what I want to say. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to say what I have to say. And the beauty about it is, Rush and others like him, they left it up to us to make a decision. So it is imperative for the Republicans to push for these antitrust laws, the federal, whether it's the Federal Trade Commission Act or whether it's the Clayton Antitrust Act, whatever. It has to be some form of that. I understand the whole 230 thing, right? It's a sticky wicket. But if we can create these antitrust laws to give the mere idea that lawsuits are forthcoming, then it'll make them, do things differently. And that we need to be trusted. And that we're all against hate speech. Nobody wants hate speech. So that's not the problem. They're using hate speech as the catch-all for the suppression and canceling of people. They're using, well, that's hate speech, or that doesn't jive with our standards. All right. Well, your standards might not be my standards. So the Republicans really need to push on and try to break up these monopolies, and again, create competition. You look at the phone companies, when they broke up Ma Bell, they created all these little companies, and they all grew up, and they became the Verizons and the Sprints and the T-Mobiles of the world. And now everybody is sharing the wealth, so to speak. Isn't that the best way to share the wealth? Is to create opportunity? So, I also think that they should increase the ability for user privacy. Stop data mining, right? They've got to stop this stuff. And, we want to feel comfortable when we're out there. I got my printout from the credit company because I was curious, about every year you print them out and everything like that. I'm looking at these companies that made inquiries into my credit. I'm thinking, I didn't apply for anything. So I started making phone calls. I started calling them. I said, what do y'all do? Tell me what kind of loans you give out. The lady told me, I said, well, we give out, installment loans. And I'm like, installment loans? I'm like, no. So anyhow, again, our privacy needs to be better protected. And we need to have more open communication about that. The consumer needs to be made aware through PSAs or whatever about their privacy rights. And not just some 10-page document being sent to you by your credit card company that most people don't read. Give us a bottom line. Give us a paragraph that says, hey, this is what we're doing, or this is what we're not going to do. But I digress out there. I apologize. But again, it has something to do with freedom and security at the same time. We want the freedom to express ourselves, to say what we need, but we also need security. And speaking of security, the other thing the Republicans need to come out and just unequivocate. Listen, this is not a debate. This is not a debate. Shut the door on this debate anymore. Stop saying defund the police and stop saying you're going to open the borders. All right? That's it. We're done. It's 2021. We're done. It's time to go back to shutting off the borders. You look at any country in the world and what they do on their borders. All right? People just don't come across there willy-nilly. I told you, these people are going to come across like ants on a Snicker bar if we open up this border. We can't do it. We can't sustain it. And the Republicans have to do a better job of saying, listen, this is not a racial issue. This is a national security issue. Period. Talk about the drugs, the sex trafficking. Trump was talking about all that. And guess what? A lot of people were starting to believe it. But you know what? You lose an election and they flip the narrative, and 90% of the media goes along with the narrative. Again, they're just so dishonest. So Security, law enforcement, border security. Law enforcement, border security. Law enforcement, border security. I would say it until I say it in my sleep. And again, last thing, the environment. I touched upon it a little bit, talking about having a reasoned, practical, pragmatic approach. We're doing it. These energy companies are doing what they can. The Republicans need to look into the future and say, yes, we are for renewable energy. We want to get to that point. We just don't want to flip the switch and try to force this on you in 3 to 5 years. Think about the Northeast. Think about the Northeast. You know, they don't get a lot of sun, warmth in the wintertime. They get some pretty cold winters up there. You think wind and solar are going to work in the Northeast? So where are they going to get their energy? Are they going to have to sponge off of other states? I mean, is a state like Virginia or South Carolina or North Carolina going to be responsible for funneling energy up to Connecticut? It's crazy. It's ridiculous. So there needs to be a multifaceted energy/environmental approach that the people are going to be happy with, and that's affordable. I mean, you look at battery energy. People are trying to say, oh, yeah, battery energy. Look at that. Hey, guess what? Yeah, those batteries, yeah, they have components in them. And those components are basically some of these rare earth materials. And guess who owns 90% of the rare earth materials? China. So are we going to be beholden to China to make batteries? Because we need to run these fucking wind turbines to provide energy for 150 homes? It's crazy. It's ludicrous. And the Republicans are going to win on this issue because the vast majority of Americans say, listen, we just want a reasonable approach. We don't want some radical lunatic approach. You know, vast majority of Americans, they're recycling. You know, most neighborhoods now you live in, you got 2 trash cans anymore, right? You've got your regular trash can, you got your recyclable trash can. People are doing their part. We're on board. We're doing a good job. We're getting there. I remember back in the 70s and 80s, if you drove down by a creek or a river, the fucking thing was littered like crazy. Nowadays, that stuff's cleaned up. We're doing a much, much better job. We're not throwing shit in the ocean like we were before. We're doing a much better job. And speaking of which, these conservation associations, they're worth giving to, as long as they don't come out with these radical agendas. I had to stop giving to 3 of them because every time I got a newsletter, they literally threw Trump overboard wherever they could. And you know, he doesn't have the greatest record on the environment, but he has a pretty decent record on the environment. And he's not because he's not a tree hugger. See, that's the whole thing. These Democrats, they go in there like they're tree huggers. I bet you AOC's never seen a fucking tent, right? Ask her if she's ever taken a hike through the Catskills. Probably not. So, again, we have to have reasonable policies. And the Republican starts with an R, so does reasonable. So they have to have reasonable plans. They have to have a 7, 8, or 10-point plan to get across to the American people, and they need to coalesce around that contract and stick with it. And they need to unify as a party, and let's get this done. All right? Because we can definitely get it done. All right, gang. I've overwhelmed my stay today. I had a lot to say. I appreciate you listening in. So until the next time, may God bless you with good health, great happiness, and absolute inner peace. Take care, y'all.